U.S. Treasury yields rebound as market-weight tax cuts and economic growth risks. Nigerian communities are struggling with pollution and economic losses after oil spills. And we will explore the Paris International Agricultural Show amid growing farmer frustration over economic pressures, policy changes, and the future of sustainable farming. Hello and welcome. I'm Jafar Hasnan with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. We begin with the U.S. Treasury yields as investors digest major shifts in fiscal policy, interest rates, expectations, and trade developments. Treasury yields are climbing. The dollar remains under pressure, and commodities like copper are reacting to potential tariff measures. Now, as uncertainties grow, traders are adjusting their strategies in response to policy shifts and economic signals. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yields climbed only 3 basis points to 4.3%, while the 2-year yield increased by 2.7 basis points to 4.1%. Investors adjusted their positions as the Republican-led House passed a $4.5 trillion tax cut plan, signaling potential fiscal expansion. Despite the rebound, concerns over U.S. economic growth lingers. Traders have ramped up expectations of Federal Reserve rate cuts, with futures now pricing in nearly 60 basis points of easing by year-end, compared to 40 basis points a week ago. The U.S. dollar index faced pressure as weak consumer confidence data intensified fears of an economic slowdown. The greenback slid to a 4-month low against the yuan before rebounding 0.25% following Treasury yield movements. U.S. copper futures soared over 4%, while global prices fell, following President Donald Trump's directive to investigate new tariffs on copper imports. The announcement sparked volatility, with investors weighing potential supply chain disruptions. For more on this, we're joined by Josh Mahaney. He's Scope Markets Chief Market Analyst, and he joins me now live from London. Josh, good to see you. So how does the rise in Treasury yields reflect investor sentiment on future debt issuance and inflation expectations?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's worth noting that any rise that we're seeing in terms of the 10-year yield comes against the basis of a massive collapse that we've seen over recent days around growth fears in particular. Of course, when we see the 10-year yields falling, that generally in the past has been perceived to be a good thing because it points towards the idea that inflation is falling. That isn't necessarily the case right now. In fact, we saw the 5-year inflation expectations metric from Michigan on Friday reaching the highest level since 1995. Instead, it's more about growth concerns. And yesterday, we saw Conference Board Consumer Sentiment Survey moving sharply towards the downside. Services PMI also moving into contraction on Friday. In terms of debt issuance, like you've highlighted to, ultimately they have a huge amount of debt that needs to roll over. And if we see downside in terms of yields, that's a good thing because that brings down the amount of new debt that they're going to have to take on. But certainly this is happening for the wrong reasons. It's not happening because of disinflation. And certainly with the core PCE metric coming out on Friday, inflation will be a hot topic. And that could be a reason why we see the 10-year yield rise once again.
Josh, with the nearly 60 basis points of easing now priced in, how does this impact the Fed's credibility in maintaining monetary stability?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't so long ago that people were talking about the possibility of 0 rate cuts. And you know, certainly it was 25 all of a week ago. And the weak data that we have been seeing essentially puts the ball back in the court of the Federal Reserve. Are you going to react to this? Do you feel the need to, or do you think that Donald Trump will be good enough for the economy to think that the downside that we're seeing at the inception of his presidency is something you're willing to ride through because you're fearful around inflation? So it does raise a number of questions for the Federal Reserve about their patience and willingness to essentially leave it all up to the president and wait and see, which essentially has been their approach so far.
And Josh, what are the potential ripple effects of Donald Trump's copper tariff probe on industrial production and global supply chains?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because ultimately he's talking about businesses coming back to the US, right? So he wants people to make their cars and their products in the US, while at the same time, copper, which is a key component for the electrification that we see all around us, he wants to raise the price of that coming into the US. Key to it is the America First approach, with the idea that he doesn't like that everyone else produces it and the US doesn't produce a huge amount, whilst of course people are going to look towards China here. The vast majority of it is actually produced in South America. But ultimately, you know, maybe it's short-term pain, long-term gain if it means that they do build a bigger copper industry in the US.
Josh Maney, thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World Business News. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has floated a new immigration plan replacing the EB-5 visa program with a gold card that would grant green card privileges and a path to U.S. citizenship for a $5 million price tag. The EB-5 program currently allows foreign investors to gain residency by creating American jobs, but Donald Trump calls it full of nonsense and plans to scrap it. His proposal would let wealthy individuals purchase a fast track to American citizenship. The administration says more details will be revealed within 2 weeks, but the idea is already raising big questions about immigration fairness and who gets a chance at the American dream. And now we head to West Africa. Oil spills have posed a significant challenge for Nigeria since the discovery of black gold there in 1956. Both residents and the environment have suffered because of these disasters. The fishing and farming communities in the Niger Delta area, especially the Ogoni region, say they have been battling pollution by the Royal Shell Oil Company for the past 5 decades. Dolapo Adirinokun reports.
Protesters from the Ogale and Bilie communities come together, demanding justice after taking a stand against the oil giant Shell and its Nigerian subsidiary. They want the company to clean up oil spills that polluted the area in the Niger Delta over the past decade. And it's been a 9-year fight for justice. And on Thursday, the trial finally began at the UK High Court.
We expect that the court will compel Shell to come and clean up their mess. We expect that the court will compel Shell to provide potable water for Ogale people. We expect that the court will compel Shell to come to Ogale, have a discussion on how we can upgrade our livelihood system.
The Ogale community was a place where tree farm cultivation and fish from the river provided for all community needs. However, they blame Shell's long-standing operations for poisoning soil, waterways, and destroying their livelihoods.
When Shell came, we welcomed them with all our whole heart. We are happy when they came, because we were thinking it was going to be a better thing for us. But along the line, when we started experiencing we plant cassava, our cassava cannot germinate. Look, water in the house is changing taste. Fishes, water in the river is killing our fishes.
Shell denies any wrongdoing and says the spills have been caused by theft and illegal refining. But the more than 13,500 Ogale and Bilie residents, represented by the British legal firm Lide, say the company must take responsibility for the oil pollution that happened between 1989 to 2020 from its operations. A 2017 United Nations Environmental Programme study found that drinking water in a community in Ogoni land was contaminated with benzene, which can cause cancer at levels over 900 times above World Health Organization guidelines. Experts say the problem goes much deeper.
The oil had penetrated very, very deep, and it has spread into different areas. So to even totally clean it up, it might not even be possible for another 50 years. Oh yeah, but you will make it at least habitable, within that period of time. But it needs a concerted, dedicated effort to do this.
The trial at the UK High Court is expected to go on until early March. And if the Bilie and Ogale communities win the case, it could set a precedent of holding multinational companies like Shell accountable by making them pay for the environmental damage they may have caused. Dolapo Adirinokun, TRT World, Ogale, Southern Nigeria.
Let's cross now to the Nigerian capital, Abuja, and bring in Ndubisi Nwokolu. He is a managing partner at Next Year Security, Peace and Development, an international consulting firm working across the African continent. Great to have you here with us on TRT World. So tell me, what are the financial challenges of cleaning up oil pollution in the Bayelsa state.
Thank you for inviting me. First, I don't even think anybody knows. We are looking at more than 5-6 decades of consistently polluting the environment by not Shell alone, by the other petro businesses in the region. So if we recall, oil production started in commercial production started in 1958 after the discovery in 1956. So we are looking at a situation where both the Nigerian state and the petro businesses in the region have continually affected this environment by the way they operated. So for one to say this is the actual figure, I think is going to take deep. So what we are looking at is a situation where we take it stage by stage until we come to a situation where the people are even happy.
Right, and how has Shell's compensation for past spills affected communities?
So I think there are a couple of things. First, when you look at it, Shell will always tell you we've paid our own share, which is the tax we've paid and some of the corporate social responsibilities we've done in the region, that the people should turn around and ask the Nigerian state what they did with the money they paid in the area of tax. But I think it's more than that. Shell hasn't done well, being that they understand the political economy in this region, where governance is at issue, the state is not as responsible as it should be. So the question one may be asking, when they operate in other developed countries where things are done very well, do they just leave it, or do they take the responsibility of being part of making sure that things are done very well? Shell operates in Netherlands, Shell operates in the UK, as well in other developed countries. They take responsibility for a lot of action, not allowing the state alone to do what they are doing. But it's not the same here in Nigeria, where they've left everything totally in the hands of the Nigerian state that just took the tax and never did anything. By the time they understood what was going on, it was late. However, it's equally important to remember that most of the pipelines that Shell laid over the years, over 50, 60 years ago, some have rusted vibes and so on. They didn't do anything about that. Each time such things happen, they always turn back to blame the communities. I am not equally saying that the communities have no blames, but I'm saying that the greater part of the blame is on Shell as well as the Nigerian state.
Good point there. Now, given that these oil spills have had a severe impact in southern Nigeria, I wonder in what ways do you think have these oil spills affected agriculture and local livelihood in the Niger Delta?
Is much. I remember an article I wrote where I talked about building peace and neglecting structural violence. Where most times we are looking at how do we keep peace in these places and allow oil to continue to flow. But we've not looked at the structural violence that we've committed in this area, like agriculture, livelihood, and so on. You could see that the women have lost their livelihood. Most importantly, again, each time we are looking at only environment and health, we've not even looked at how oil in these places have changed the political economy, the traditional leadership and so on, where youth have taken responsibility and try to be the ones that dictate how these communities are governed. All are linked to the presence of oil and how it has managed. So if we draw this down, you could see that how this has affected employment, how this has affected agriculture, livelihood, resilience, and other forms of development in the region. So looking at it, you may not actually say it's only about the environment or it's only about health or agriculture. These is almost encompassing, is a big package.
Fascinating insights, Mr. Nwaokolo. Thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World. I really appreciate your taking out the time.
Thank you.
And now let's take a quick look at some business stories from around the world. Tesla shares took a sharp dive on Tuesday, falling over 8% and dropping the company's market value below $1 trillion, its lowest point since November. This slump comes on the heels of a 45% drop in European sales, while competitors saw growth. The dip could be due to random sales fluctuations, or CEO Elon Musk's political actions might be turning customers away. Argentina's economy is showing signs of recovery after a tough slump worsened by President Javier Milei's austerity measures in early 2024. GDP grew by 5.5% in the final months of 2024 year on year, marking its fastest growth since mid-2022. For the whole year, economic activity shrank 1.8%, but is still beating analysts' expectations. Chile declared a state of emergency and a nighttime curfew after a massive power outage hit much of the country. The blackout, caused by a transmission line failure, left the capital Santiago in darkness and shut down major copper mines. The government ruled out a cyber attack and deployed armed forces to maintain order. The International Agriculture Show has officially kicked off in Paris, transforming the city into a celebration of all things farming. With exhibits showcasing crops and everything related to agriculture, the event is set to become the largest farm in France. But while it highlights the best of French agriculture, it comes amid protests from farmers who are voicing concerns over pay and working conditions. Emre Bose reports.
With cows to horses, the Paris International Agriculture Show is an event which attracts thousands of visitors and farmers every year. But some farmers are not happy with the government. They've been protesting since January last year.
So in the end, we came to remind them that a year ago, last year, they had promised us what they called floor prices. We were calling for guaranteed minimum prices, and in fact, for a whole year, there had been no response to this major demand from the agricultural sector. So a year later, we found ourselves still in the same situation, with a crisis that had worsened for many farmers.
Only 3 weeks ago, farmers ended their roadblocks around Paris after the government offered $433 million in aid and tax breaks. Another area of concern is foreign competition. Farmers fear that an EU trade deal with South America's trade bloc will make French agricultural products less competitive. With no trade barriers, the deal will allow foreign products to flood the French markets.
We're working to ensure there is no split in the agreement, to secure a blocking minority and to convince all our partners. I believe our arguments are the same across Europe. We must defend Europe's ability to produce.
But the situation for French farmers is made even more complicated, with US President Donald Trump's announcements of plans to impose tariffs on France. That's over their digital services tax targeting US tech companies. This may mean lower demand for French agricultural products.
Of course, this is one of the issues we will defend, because I will explain to him that between allies, you don't make each other suffer with tariffs, that in the past and as we still see today have impacted our producers who are being hit by the Chinese market. When you have threats, when you have tariffs, when you have coercive measures, it's families who are threatened in their livelihoods.
And if this happens, the outlook for already struggling farmers could become even more bleak. Emre Bose, TRT World.
Global coffee prices are continuing to rise to record levels. This has led to an increased demand for homegrown beans. Lara Kilik-Arslan reports.
Your daily latte might soon leave a bitter taste. The most popular Arabica coffee prices soared to an all-time high that is 6 times more than just 20 years ago. Global coffee prices haven't been this high since the 1970s. In 2004, coffee prices hit a low of just 50 cents, marking one of the lowest points in decades. By 2014, prices climbed to $2.50, driven by supply concerns. But when we come to 2024, coffee prices have skyrocketed to $3.44 per pound.
The current price of coffee always favors us a lot, generating profits. We finally see the money.
And it's pushing coffee lovers and roasters to go local. In Australia, one farm has 45,000 coffee trees and is planning to expand with 2,000 more.
That mentality is something that people are definitely looking towards. If we can help support our own industry and our own markets, let's do that.
However, there's a catch. Aussie-grown beans make up less than 0.5% of coffee consumed in the country. New growers are working hard to change that, but patience is key.
We're aiming to try and get enough coffee up and running in the next few years so that when the Olympics are in Brisbane that we can supply coffee for the venue up there.
But the clock is ticking. With new farms come high wages and land costs. Coffee lovers will be hoping that local growers can produce more affordable coffee before their wallets run dry. Lara Kulcharslan, TRT World.
Now, Vietnam has long been seen as a rising economic star in Asia. However, it faces a major hurdle: aging infrastructure. The country's rail network is one of the least developed in Southeast Asia, holding back further growth. As Umar Bakalulu reports, the government now wants to change this.
From congested roads to inefficient ports and underdeveloped rail system, for businesses operating in Vietnam, the realities of the country's transportation infrastructure can be a major headache. Bottlenecks and delays are common, especially for those moving goods between key manufacturing hubs and ports. This means higher logistic costs and missed opportunities in global markets. Now, the government is taking a major step to address these challenges. Last week, it approved plans for a new $8 billion railway that will connect its largest northern port city to border with China. Partially funded by loans from Beijing, the project aims to streamline trade between the two key partners and unlock Vietnam's economic potential.
Trade between China and Vietnam is already absolutely massive. And this railway, it's designed to make this trade faster, cheaper, and more predictable as well. So currently, China supplies much of the raw materials that fuels Vietnam's manufacturing sector. And keeping that pipeline steady is absolutely critical.
The 390-kilometer track will pass through some of Vietnam's key industrial zones, home to global manufacturers like Samsung and Foxconn. Many of these companies rely heavily on a steady flow of components from China, making the railway a critical link in the region's supply chain.
So right now, too much of that traffic depends on trucks, which are of course slower, costlier, and also prone to border bottlenecks. A modern rail link cuts through those inefficiencies, ensuring that goods move smoothly, whether they're flowing into Vietnam's factories or heading to global markets via Haiphong's port.
Beyond boosting trade, the project is also expected to relieve traffic congestion. An issue has made Vietnam's roads some of the most clogged in the region.
If there is a new route, it will be even more convenient. I travel by train regularly and rarely travel by car. Although my house is located on the route between Haiphong and Hanoi, and we have a car, I never travel by car.
I personally enjoy traveling to experience and admire the scenery, so traveling by train makes more sense. On the train, I can enjoy the surrounding landscape and get a more objective perspective. When traveling by plane, the trip is short and I don't have much opportunity to experience anything.
The project is expected to take around 6 years to complete, and it aligns with Vietnam's vision of becoming an industrialized nation by mid-century. But given the country's track record of delayed infrastructure projects, this journey could take longer than planned. Ömer Bakalolu, TRT World.
More than 1,500 startups and 600 investors have gathered in Doha for an expanded edition of the Web Summit. The four-day event focused on digital technology and innovation and brought together founders and investors navigating the fast-changing AI landscape. Hosted by Qatar, the summit is a key platform for entrepreneurs in the region to reconnect with global investors, journalists, and industry leaders. Among them are dozens of Turkish entrepreneurs from AI to digital finance, showcasing their ideas and building new partnerships.
I think on the fintech, it's always great to get together from different countries, the leaders of the fintech areas. As mentioned in the panels, we are talking with the friends in UAE, Egypt, like the Qatar, as well as like the Saudi, to see how the different countries are growing and what are the parallels. So I think know-how sharing is the first pillar. The second pillar is also the regulatory assessments and understanding. Today we have been talking with the Qatar Financial Center, trying to understand the regulatory regimes of here, as well as comparing with our own country and what are the innovations and the collaborations that could be. So we are also expanding the business models. And thirdly, I think the human capital, as mentioned, like the talent itself, it is both connection of like the startups, but as well as the teams. So it's also a wide opening range of a good starting of friendships, as well as like the partnerships as well. So I think these are like the trade itself. Ideas are also trading currently here. So Turkey is one of the leading ones in the region on both innovation as well as human capital. So there are great synergies that we see bridging both our country as well as the region itself. And the momentum and the excitement in the region is very visible. So they're very welcoming, and also like the discussions are going on that front as well. But it's not only in the region, we see that as a global trend. So I think for the coming years as well, we will see much more opportunities, partnerships, and exciting news.
Turkey has been a recent good development for the last 20-25 years in the banking sector. Especially digitalization of the banking sector was very successful also with respect to regulators, legislations, and also some security implementations that Turkish banking sector is standing a powerful situation. With the fintech's developments, those banking legislation also led fintech companies to create more values, security values, and different differentiation of the products. When we look this last decades developments, of course, fintechs are main changer of the business, main changer of the games. We will see more different fintechs upcoming years. We are trying to facilitate fintech companies, fintech startups, and also we are trying to fintegrate. This is a new terminology from our side. We are trying to fintegrate the companies, fintech services, open banking APIs, digital banking APIs, payment services. So when we visit this show, this exhibition, we witness there are lots of startups and also fintech startups. We want to explore new words, new startups and new business models.
TRT's digital streaming platform Tabi has made its international debut in Dubai. It was launched 2 years ago, gaining 11 million subscribers, and is now aiming to expand its global outreach. Rumeysa Chodar was at the event.
Festivities, success, and creating a bold new chapter. Turkey's digital streaming giant Tabi is making its mark on the global stage with a gala premiere in Dubai.
After the success achieved by Tabi, we believe that it should not be limited to Turkey. Expanding into the MENA region was preferred because it is the region where historical dramas are most followed. Both the intense interest in TRT productions in this region and the strong historical and cultural ties between the region and Turkey played a key role. These powerful historical and cultural connections helped expand our common ground, which led us to prioritize the MENA region.
Since its launch in 2023, Tabi amassed over 11 million subscribers and reached millions of views with more than 40 original productions in 5 languages. This expansion comes at a strategic time when Turkish productions are making global waves, especially in the MENA region, thanks to the cultural proximity and shared history. A diverse range of Tabi original productions, from comedy to period dramas and action to drama, have been showcased, where Turkish and Arabic actors share the same stage along with their common goals.
It is crucial for our culture to reach broader geographies, especially with our series airing in the MENA region. As an actor, I'm very happy about this. Turkey is a crucial player in TV series exports, and we needed a digital platform to bring our stories to new audiences. Tabi has taken on this role, and we're very lucky. I believe a series like Gasal, which has millions of viewers, will resonate deeply with MENA due to its shared values and culture.
Tabi's strength lies in its multilingual platform and diverse content appealing to all ages.
Turkish original productions are captivating over 1 billion unique viewers, expanding Turkey's cultural influence worldwide. This perfectly aligns with Tabi's global ambitions, bringing more value-based content to the world stage and competing with international rivals. Rumeysa Chodar, TRT World, Dubai.
And that's all your business news for now. Thanks for watching.